Okay, hey team, welcome in. Hermit is here. In the final timeline gap video, where we're going to talk about basically the transitory time between being like an abject beginner and just kind of handling the basics to becoming a more intermediate beginner and having my first dedicated like notebook or place where I was putting all the stuff I was learning. So here we are in what's going to be video 3. So I'm going to go over basically just like the anecdotes, the stories of how I feel like I upgraded my studies and like found something more to do with it. So this will be a very like anecdotal little video here. Here is a really basic timeline, and then we're going to go to the whiteboard. I don't have a lot of things to like share, so we're gonna use what we have here. So in December of 2021, I began my lunation practice, my lunar observance, and at that same time began like texting little, I guess, like lunation horoscopes or little like moon how-tos to my friends. And then in May of 2022, I got like classmates that I thought would be interested, so I started texting them as well. And then by August 2022, I had like run out of steam for that. I was also in something that I hated, and that became like the catalyst to like kind of double down on astrology. And then right after that is when I found the sources that would kind of elevate my practice and the teachers that I would later take courses from. Okay, as I said, summer 2021 began. By December of 2021, I'm applying it into my moon journal, and then I'm doing that for a month, and then I start a new job in January 2022. I quit that job by April, and I decide, F it, I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna go get a Reiki certificate. I'm gonna go to massage school. I'm gonna go do art walk, which is something in my town that you can like rent a space to put up a table and a tent with like 1,000 other artists, and then people walk around and maybe buy your art or they take a look at stuff. So anyway, I decided to do that even though I like didn't have any artwork and I wouldn't consider myself an artist. I was like, I don't need to become an artist to be an artist. I'm going to go do it and thus be an artist. And then I also decided on the same vein to take a yoga teacher training because I was always like, well, no, once I do yoga a lot, then I'll go get the yoga teacher training. But I was like, no, I'm going to go get like a certificate. I'm going to do it all. This is my like summer of we're doing it. So that was overall like what my 2022 was. So in March of 2022 is when I started with tarot, and then a couple of months later I get my Reiki certificate. That puts me on to getting books from the library to learn like witchcraft basics, and you can see the library video that I did, the library book video that I did. And then, yeah, I went through the summer, I did my art walk, it was fine. I realized I don't want to do that again. I don't want to stand outside with my art in the wind and the weather and like talk to people and be like, "Oh yeah, hi." Like I don't want to do that. But it was fun to make it. And the like artwork that's on all of my borders and everything, that's something that I painted that year. And yeah, then I got into the yoga teacher training, and when I was getting into that, I had this book that I had gotten for my birthday, January of 2014, and it had, maybe a little journal entry at one point, or I had tried to, if I was ever part of like a Pathfinder or a D&D campaign, I would try and put like my character information in here, but it never really got used, it never really got filled out. And so I had this big journal hanging out with me for a long time from January 2014 until I started using it for this yoga teacher training course to put all my like yoga notes in August, September of 2022. So I had it for basically 9 years, and then it took me 9 months to fill this book up. So if you are keyed into my chart, which I'm sharing all the time, this 9 years, I'm an eclipse baby, so that's an eclipse number. And then this 9 months, all I talk about is 9 months with the lunar gestation cycles, but also 9 months is a Venus type of number. And so the first two planets that were like my into astrology were the moon and then Venus. So if you look, The timing, the signs will be everywhere. But anyway, I owned this book for 9 years, tried to use it to fill out yoga notes. So this was right before I went into the yoga class. I pulled tarot cards for it. I pulled one for like every day of the week. And I had them spread out on my floor, and a giant centipede came and ran down these first 3 Fridays out of 4 Fridays in like a intensive month-long yoga teacher training course, and then hightailed it back into my kitchen. And I ended up being in this course for 3 weeks and like getting more and more aggravated. And then I got COVID and I didn't go back for the last one. So thank you, Centipede, for blessing me in these cards and that message. But here I was trying to learn about yoga. This is some yoga notes. And then I had one page left over at the very end of this book, and I put a summary of some notes from an astrology course I took, but then we're right back into yoga, some mudras, the vagus nerve, and then I wasn't sure if I was gonna like abandon yoga teaching or yoga in general, so I didn't cut the pages out. I just kept them together with little stickies so that I can pass right over them without being like, what is this doing in here? But here I have some more yoga. So it's peppered throughout this book, because how I started using it in that course is I would just kind of like, okay, open it up. We're going to take some notes here. And then like we'll open it up over here and we'll take some notes here. So that was the beginning of using this. And then I also, like this was the catalyst that made me realize that I don't want to do this like yoga thing. I don't want to do any of the things I was doing this summer. I just want to do astrology. Because by the time I got to August, by the time I got to essentially moving into Libra season, I had completely run out of steam. I had started texting my friends like lunation texts in December, and then added like Reiki classmates and added massage classmates. And then by the time I got into the yoga teacher training, I ended up sending a text out to everybody being like, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, thanks so much. Part of it was that it was really hard to keep it going with never having like any feedback or any replies. And it's essentially what I'm doing here on the lunation videos, but I can see that, I can see 3 people watched. I don't go and then look and see when they clicked off. That's not important. What matters is that I can see that somebody is seeing what I'm saying, right? So anyway, I just totally ran out of steam. But also at this time, I was still using just like random internet sources. I was still using Placidus. I was still using Modern Rulership, ABC Astrology, Natural Zodiac. And so I was really kind of hitting a wall with what I could get out of studying my chart in these lunations. It had been over 6 months of me doing it, which means I had gotten every sign. I had gone through every house, and now I was doing them again, just in a different lunation, right? Because we go new moon, full moon, new moon, full moon. So it takes 6 months to get all 12 signs. And then you just flip and it's full moon, new moon. And so, I had kind of reached my limit of what I could, I guess, fill out in learning about my own chart by doing whatever by like following the moon through the zodiac, using natural or using modern sources in the natural zodiac and modern rulership. Because like I got into astrological study, first of all, to eat up a lot of time, but second of all, because the online stuff is only maybe 50% accurate, which is still pretty cool, that you can get like half of your life right from apparently just like an automated message from a chart. But I wanted to learn how to put it all together so that that missing 50% I could maybe reinterpret it in a way that I would be like, oh, that's why, that makes perfect sense, I see now. And I had hit my limit with just random internet sources that I was using at about the same time that I got into the yoga teacher training. So I got into the yoga teacher training. It was really expensive. I chose this one because I thought it was just like so legit and it would be like everything I needed to know, and whatever. It was not for me, and that's fine. That's still good to know. And whenever I catch myself being like, oh, it was so expensive. Like I'm still learning from it. And so I think like it's still paying me or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's a long investment. So anyway, I get into it. I don't like it. I want out. I get really sick, so I don't finish. And this is the time, the catalyst where I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, it's taking away all my energy to do astrology, like to track the transits, to do my lunar practice. Like, I don't have the energy because I'm doing this thing, which I don't like and is like just not for me. So I get sick, I don't go back, and then I decide as like a like F you to the yoga course, and like to take my time and my energy back. I decide to start using this book for astrology. So like what is a stellium? Finding Stellium Handbook, which I think is on Deb Holding's site. And I was still just using random sources that I could find online about solar returns, like stuff from Cafe Astrology or whatever. But I quit trying to fit stuff into the back of my moon journal or random pieces of loose leaf. I decided to use this book, which had sit in my house, carting around, maybe an entry there, maybe an entry there, that I would then cut out of the book, because I don't need like a bunch of D&D stuff in here. I played that character one day and then was like, no. So I started putting astrology in here. And now I've got like 5 of these that are filled. So also at this time, these just won't dry erase off, which, like, come on, what are you marketed for? Markers. So also in this time, in September, October, I'm starting to fill this book out with more astrology. I'm trying to find more consistent sources instead of just like articles on various magazines or websites or things like that. So at the same time, over the summer, I had gotten a book on the Witch's Wheel of the Year to like kind of help me map out all the different things I was seeing about like different holidays and different portals and different times of year. So I decided to paint my first transit calendar because I'm also seeing all this noise about like tracking transits, tracking transits. And for sure, I'm opening up the AstroSeek current planets constantly and developing like the vibes method of tracking that way. But I wanted a way to track it. So that was also when I painted my first transit calendar with like push pins and whatever. And then, yeah, I found the astrology podcast, which give me all the flack you want for being a YouTube astrologer. I completely agree and I get it. The astrology podcast gave me the foundation basics in like a concrete way that I was able to not only like reinvigorate and elevate my lunar practice and like my own chart study, but because of all the guest hosts on the astrology podcast, I also found like other teachers that I then took courses from. So like I've also paid for courses, I've attended a lot of lectures, let's all calm down. I have not read the sources. Like I haven't read Valen's. I haven't even read Chris's book because whenever I try to read the book, I can just hear his voice saying it because he's shared a lot of it on the podcast. I know it's not all on the podcast, but one day I will redo the book. But so that's me being honest about my sources, and you'll see more as I go through the journals. So yeah, September, October, I have painted my calendar. I start using it in November in Scorpio season, and I'm taking more and more notes. I'm learning more and more. I'm starting to learn more about the terms I've come across, but I have no idea what they mean, like sect or like superior trine or inferior conjunction. And so I'm trucking along, taking notes, making my calendar, starting to use the transit calendar with the push pins. And then in December, I move into my second moon journal. I begin tracking transits on a big whiteboard on my wall. And then I have begun like a planetary investigation using all this new information that I have. And in December is when I realized that, like, oh, the last planet that I thought to investigate because she doesn't look like she's doing very well or she has a lot of influence in my chart is Venus. And then I get to Venus and I was like, oh my, Venus is the one to investigate. So this also began in January of 2023, a planetary magic practice or observation. And then I began in this spring of 2023, I began taking lectures and courses from Kelly Surtees. So that is all basically in this book here. So yeah, that is basically the end of my like timeline gap. When I was beginning, I was trying to use it, and then when I like more seriously began my study and had a place to put like study notes, and I started going deeper into different techniques, different aspects, different terms, finding different teachers. That is the end of this gap. So in this gap here, the like this little end phase is the end of me doing like my horoscopes phase 1, like the first rendition of those that petered out by then. A transition to traditional sources, uh, sourced mainly from the astrology podcast. I also like the astrology hub and astro, and there's a lot of sources, but the one that I kept coming back to and I still go back to is the astrology podcast. And then this also let me reinvigorate my moon journal so that I wanted to keep going, and I ended up filling like another book with the 2 years of lunar observance. And yeah, this little gap, this moment here is kind of what catalyzed me having the journal to fill out, already having it, wanting to fill it out with something else, and realizing that like what I want to be spending my time on, what I want to be spending like up all night with, what I want to be studying is not yoga or yoga philosophy or how to be a teacher or creating playlists, but I just want to be into the astrology. So yeah, and then next up will be a different I guess series. So like I'll use a different color coding here than this light blue. So the next video will be a tour of my first journal. I'm gonna talk about how I filled it out, why it's my favorite, and then kind of just do a general flip through, which will be a preview of more in-depth videos, if there are any to come from this journal in specific. And then we'll go on to the other journals. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in. That is basically the wrap up on my like phase 1 or like beginner timeline.